are united in diversity. We are very heterogeneous in our opinion.
We are doing this in our open democracies, discussing this all open and loud, and I'm not for that.
What is European Union? What is freedom? How we learn together.
The obvious question is, what is the EU doing? What is our plan?
Good afternoon, and everyone, welcome. I am Carrie Budoff-Brown, and I'm the executive editor of Politico here in Brussels, and it's a pleasure to welcome all of you today. Today we're here to talk, I'll stop messing with my hair, my thing in a second. Today we're here to talk about an issue that is increasingly shaping conversations everywhere you go. You can't escape it. Obviously, the impact of artificial intelligence on jobs and the workplace. As we all know, AI technology is evolving rapidly, and as a result, it's reshaping the European economy and the European labor market. Employers are racing to introduce AI tools to help their employees be more productive, and those efforts are already changing the nature of work and redefining the skills workers need to succeed. Meanwhile, governments are facing political pressure to respond. How can they craft policies that balance the economic opportunities of AI with its potential risks? And how can and should governments keep up with the pace of change in the industry? Here at Politico, AI and how governments are grappling with it, it's a core part of so much that we do. Obviously, it starts with our tech coverage, but it's increasingly something we're following across all of our policy areas. At our AI and Tech Summit this spring, we hosted policymakers from across Europe, as well as some from across the pond in Washington, to talk about what governments can and should do to respond to these shifts. And we're excited to continue that conversation today. We'd like to thank our partners at OpenAI for making this event possible. We also want to hear from you as we get this event underway. On the screen behind me, you'll see the polling question our partners at OpenAI have shared with us to help kick off our discussion today. The question is, which of the AI labor market transition will need the most focus in Europe? You can scan the QR code on the side screens behind me to vote, which will be up through the entire event, and we'll share the results later. So please weigh in and tell us what you think. And now I'd like to turn to our opening interview and welcome our first guest, Erin Rani Chatterjee, to the stage. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Okay. Welcome, Ronnie.
Oh, good.
Let me give a quick introduction of who you are,
Oh,
though.
no worries.
I assume maybe many know who you are, but Ronnie is OpenAI's first ever chief economist and a professor at Duke University. Before joining OpenAI, he served in the Biden administration as the White House's CHIPS coordinator and acting deputy director of the National Economic Council. He has held senior roles in the U.S. Department of Commerce and the White House Council of Economic Advisors. Ronnie, thanks so much for joining us.
Carrie, it's great to be here. Good to see everyone. Honored to be in Brussels.
Is this not your first time, right?
No.
You're familiar.
I am, and it's great to be back.
I hope you get something good to eat before you leave
For
and
sure,
move on.
for sure.
Well, listen, I am fascinated. What you all have on your chair is new research out today from OpenAI, and it's fascinating because it's very Europe-specific.
Yes.
It is Europe-specific. What is the most surprising finding from that? Give this audience a top line.
The most surprising finding is how many jobs can grow with AI. That might seem surprising if you've been reading a lot of the headlines. In the US and Europe, there's been lots of discussion about AI's impact on the job market. And as an economist, when you get into the data and try to understand what's driving that, a lot of it's based on these exposure measures. We look at things that machines can do, and that list is growing broader and broader every day. We look at the things that we think jobs are about, and we say, if a machine can do that, and your job does that, there goes your job. That's not the way economists think about jobs. And so what we try to do with this report, and my colleague Alex Richmond did a fantastic job on this, is trying to divide jobs into which ones are actually exposed to AI and which ones are much safer. And what you find here is around 14% of jobs in Europe, so we did this customized for Europe, could actually grow because of AI. How does that work? Well, a lot of people refer to this as Javon's paradox, but it's actually just a downward sloping demand curve. If you think about the price of a good or service going down, if demand is elastic, people may demand more of it, and that could actually expand the market for that. There's no ceiling on how much code we can write or how many graphic designs we can do, and so the idea that just because AI can do those things means that those jobs are going to be threatened is incorrect. It actually could be the case. In some industries, not all, those jobs could grow. And so that number, 14% of jobs in Europe could grow because of AI, was probably the most surprising one of the report.
One or two of those sectors or job occupations?
I think software development and graphic design are two good examples in that way, and you can think about it in the following sense. Anything where we might buy more of it when it's cheaper is fair game. It does depend on the specifics of that market, but you can just think about software development for one example. We have code in almost everything in the built environment. Everything here is running on some sort of software. But what if it was cheaper to write software? Now I can write software. I can put it into more things. That actually can increase the demand for software if more people can have it and more people can produce it. Those are the kinds of jobs we're talking about.
So at the flip side, of course, we have, well, 14% of jobs here with a higher potential for automation, which means what? It means that these jobs can...
So this is of course, AI can definitely threaten some jobs, and what we find in our report is there's a segment of jobs that are more likely to be automated by AI. It doesn't mean it's happening now, but it means these jobs have the characteristics to be sort of replaced by AI. And these jobs are typically remote jobs that require sort of rote admin kind of work that don't require a lot of discretion or judgment. These are things we've been talking about in the labor market for a long time. You still see many of these jobs persisting, but it means that policymakers should be focused on this set of jobs. And so what we try to do in this report is give policymakers a guide. Having worked in government before, we get overwhelmed with a lot of data. People send us a lot of papers. We wanted to make sure we were very clear, these are the jobs that you should focus on, and we hope it'll be used in Europe and around the world.
And to boil it down a little bit more, the report found that Germany, Greece, and Italy have the largest employment shares of these occupations.
Yes.
3 countries, obviously, Europe-wide, the economy is obviously, in a fragile place. What does it say about those countries? And give us a sense of the other countries where, they're not, let's say the effect is longer term than what is immediate in these 3 countries. What needs to happen?
Sure. So whenever you come back from Europe to San Francisco at headquarters, people always say, what are the vibes? What are people thinking about in Europe? And I always come back with the advice of our team here, there's not just one story. And that stat is about the different kinds of stories across Europe. So Germany's in a different position, let's say, than France or Belgium in these characteristics. Why is that? Because of the composition of jobs in industry. Some European countries are really heavy on manufacturing. The more heavy you are on manufacturing, the less AI exposure you may have in your particular job. Other countries are really sort of overweighted on small and medium-sized enterprises that are slower in general to adopt AI. These are the reasons why we're seeing some variation across country in our report. It's because of the underlying industry base. This is really important. When someone says AI is going to cause X% unemployment, you always have to ask the question for which countries, which industries, and does this apply to us? That's what we were trying to do in this report. Another thing to look at is usage varies widely across Europe. So we released some data earlier this year called Signals. It basically maps all of our consumer data. You can download it right now. You can run regressions on it. You can build tables. The Netherlands ranks 2nd in per capita AI usage in our data. Germany's lower. So there's differences between countries that show up in that data as well. We hope that can be used by policymakers to understand where is AI actually being used. Exposure is a theoretical measure at the end of the day. Actual usage, adoption is what we have data on. That's what we want to share with the world.
Across all of this research you have done, what stands out in terms of what makes Europe different across, just any of these sort of factors at play? Like, where is this continent leading compared to other regions? Where is it falling behind?
Yeah. I'll say one area where I think we have to watch in Europe, another area where I think Europe's really well positioned. Enterprise adoption is going to be the thing I'll be watching in Europe over the next year and a half. Why is that? You have a lot of leading firms. I get to work with a lot of them, like BBVA, for example, Deutsche Telekom, here in Europe. But in general, there's a capability gap between what AI can do and what firms are actually using it for. And we have released a lot of this data with our B2B signals data stream that you can also access. And in that, you'll see that in Europe, there is a gap between capabilities and adoption. It's that gap that needs to close if Europe's going to be AI ready. And the enterprise is really the key where you're looking at this. It's an organizational challenge more than a technological challenge. In terms of where Europe is really well positioned, one of the cool things about my job is I get to spend a lot of time thinking about the data here and now, but also the future. I think robotics is one of the very interesting places where AI is going to get really real for a lot of different countries and sectors. And I look at the manufacturing and industrial base of Europe, I see a lot of potential to participate in that. And there's many, many countries that are part of that value chain. That's an exciting place to look for going forward.
A different sort of slice of research you did, which was the adoption of Codex within OpenAI, which maybe shouldn't be a surprise, but it was high level of adoption of this more advanced level of the AI revolution. External organizations, not as a high adoption rate. I guess I would ask you, but also what I found surprising is that the adoption went well beyond software engineers and those in the technical field. It's actually researchers and lawyers, and it does show an advancement that could give us a glimpse of the future.
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah.
So how did that? I guess maybe it's in OpenAI. What did it take to have that level of adoption in fields that are beyond the technical space? And what does it say about what CEOs need to be thinking about going forward?
Thanks for the question. I'll just say first, I know this is a very sophisticated crowd. Everyone knows what Codex is, but I should just define it. This is our agentic tool. It started off as a coding assistant, but now people like myself, my team, we use it for all the work we're doing at our computer. So to summarize our Slack threads, to send messages around the organization, to do literature reviews, create a podcast with your email so you can listen to it rather than read it, all sorts of coding tasks as well that weren't formerly part of my job. So that's how you should think about Codex. I say this because sometimes I'll talk about it and people are thinking in terms of chatbots. We're beyond chatbots for a lot of us. We've moved from chatbots to reasoning models like the O1 series that people know well, and now into agentic AI. Codex is our agentic product. As an economist, the biggest critique I get, Carrie, is, oh, you're going to study something that is already in the past. How interesting can that be? And it is hard for economists to get data on things that are happening right now. So my team, the economic research team at OpenAI, we set out to study something that's happening right now, which is Codex adoption. Now, Codex in the real world, you have north of 5 million users. People in enterprise and consumers are using it. But inside OpenAI, it is an amazing sort of story of technology adoption. So I worked with a cross-functional team. XFN is the three letters that matter here. From lawyers to our privacy experts to our research team to say, hey, could we tell the world how OpenAI is using Codex? The biggest question we get is, given all the things we know about AI, how are we organizing? What are tools we're using? So we studied Codex adoption inside OpenAI by myself and my colleagues. And what we found is in late 2025, you saw near universal penetration among the research and engineering crowd inside OpenAI with Codex. But some of the, let's call non-technical functions, I'm going to put myself, sadly, into this as an economist, the less technical or non-technical functions, economic research, recruiting, data science, finance, all those orgs, they started adopting Codex more aggressively. After that, between January and April of 2026, so we're literally talking just a few months ago, you saw the ramp in those non-technicals go like this. And this is on X. It's one of the most viral tweets we've had from the paper. It shows the adoption rate of those non-technical orgs just like going up and to the right. That was a huge surprise. It means that when you're looking at your organization, you may see the technical people adopt first, but if you do it right, a lot of the non-technical folks can come quickly afterwards. We got a lot of encouragement inside OpenAI to learn how to use the tool for role-specific use cases. I don't know how many of you have done AI training. When someone tells you something that you don't even do at your job, it sort of just goes over your head, or you don't really take note of it. We do focus trainings with people to say, here's how an economic researcher could use AI, and specifically Codex. I did that training, okay? And when I sat in that training, for the first time I realized what I could do at my job, that increased my adoption. Those are things I think that are more effective than a lot of the other things that are going on out there.
Is there enough of that happening beyond OpenAI?
I think we need more role-specific materials.
And what role does government play in this?
Oh, huge. I mean, when I talk to governments around the world, there's always a focus on education sector, health sector, and SMBs, small and medium-sized businesses. But to make it relevant in those cases, which are very specialized, you need to have, when I say role-specific use cases, I mean, think about the industry that you're working in. Let's say healthcare. Think about what someone could use an agentic tool for and train to that. But a lot of times people are coming in with something that's really been pitched to a bank or a big tech company and doesn't work for someone in healthcare. it's a small thing, but it matters. The second thing, there's a teacher-to-student ratio issue. The things that I've learned the most from Codex is when I had one person in front of a room of maybe 8 people around a table. That's hard to do. We don't have enough trainers. We have to train more. But that person can come around and see what everyone's doing. I mean, training to use AI, a lot of people are on their phone or they're on their laptop. They're like, oh, this configuration doesn't work. I don't have access to this. Who gave permissions to my agent? All those questions come up, and if you're in a training with 300 people, it's very, very difficult to keep up. So I feel like small, focused trainings, role-specific, it sounds obvious, but most places aren't doing that.
Speaking of policymakers, I mean, in this report, you argue that there should be country-specific responses, not necessarily EU-wide or Europe-wide answers. Why is that?
I think if every country, and it shouldn't sort of supersede sort of other policies, I just mean to say, we need sort of national readiness plans because each country is quite different. Like one interesting thing going to before, just look at the industry and job composition of the different countries in Europe. If you think about those countries are not going to have a one-size-fits-all answer for AI. They can certainly learn from each other and share best practices, but if you're thinking about a country that's heavily dependent on the service sector versus one that's heavily dependent on the manufacturing sector, what AI means for them will be different. I think the national readiness plan and focus on AI literacy can work in a lot of places, but it'll probably have to be customized for those particular characteristics.
Is there a role for the EU to play, though?
Oh, yes, for sure.
What should that look like? I mean, if you were, well, this week you're visiting with policymakers, going to an ECB summit. What is the message?
So, I mean, fiscal and monetary policy are both really important. I'll be speaking tomorrow at Sintra as part of the ECB summit. So when you think about monetary policy, it's incredibly important to think about AI's impact on the macroeconomy, growth, productivity, how our investments in infrastructure are affecting the stability of the economy, the effect of cyber on financial stability. These are all issues on the monetary side. On the fiscal side, I know these are some things being considered here. What kind of budget are we going to allocate to training? I mean, as an economist who's studied training for a long time, the record is mixed in terms of sort of evidence-based approaches to how to train people for new jobs. It's easy for us to say retrain, 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 but actually figuring out what works will require some budget and some experimentation. That's often facilitated by government grants and support for evidence-based research alongside it, not just implementation of the program. So that's one example where the EU could play a big role. And there's many, many others. I think the National Readiness Plan should be thought as a complement to the EU, not a substitute.
I mean, Europe, as we all know, is known a little bit more for regulating AI. I guess, should it be shifting its focus? Should it be investing more, changing its focus more from regulating AI to something else?
I don't always think about it as a substitute issue there either. I mean, honestly, there's a lot of knowledge about AI here. When I travel around Europe, people who are in government are pretty knowledgeable about what's going on, the shift to agentic AI tools. I think the investments in workforce readiness and AI literacy will dovetail well with the current structure that we have in Europe, because at the end of the day, you have a lot of policy and domain experts in government. Some of them have backgrounds in law or economics. Designing ways for workers to actually learn how to use AI, learn how it could benefit them, choose whether they want to use it or not. This seems in the spirit of what I'm hearing among European policymakers. I don't think necessarily sort of the legacy in Europe portends a particular attitude towards AI. I think there's a lot of self-awareness here about sort of how AI might be different than other technologies, and I think that's actually a really good thing. And,
just if you were to, make a suggestion on sort of 3 areas of investment that should happen at the EU level. You mentioned a few, but just...
From my vantage point, humbly, having someone who worked in government myself in a different place, I think the workforce readiness piece is key, right? Workers need to learn how to use AI. People need to figure out in school when we're going to use it, university educations, all that kind of piece of where AI fits in. Second is small, medium-sized enterprises. If you think about who the laggards are typically, we talk about small startups, but many small businesses are older firms, often run by, let's say, a family. They're slow or lack the working capital to quickly adopt new technologies. This has got to be a really big focus. And the third thing has got to be talent. One of the most amazing things at the AI Summit in Paris a couple years ago was just the concentration of talent from Europe that were there. I know many people here were there too. Even from France alone, we have a lot of French folks at OpenAI, but just European-wide was amazing. That talent, to make sure you're growing the talent here in Europe and attracting the best talent on AI, has got to be the other priority, at least from my vantage point.
Great. We're almost out of time. I wanted to ask you one more question. Sure. I would say if you could maybe imagine sitting here in 2035. Yeah. What would convince you that Europe managed the AI transition well? And what would failure look like?
Yeah,
or
there's-
success, if you want to.
Yeah, no, there's so many reports now with different titles that remind me of this. Look, for me, success is making sure the transition goes well. And when I think about the transition, it has to start with individuals and their outcomes. You know, to me, that's more important than any enterprise or government outcome. So we should look at what kinds of jobs people have. Are they quality jobs? I know there's a big focus here on quality. And are they able to live better and more fulfilling lives? That'll be the determination. All the things we think about AI and all the benefits are ultimately to help people. So if we don't deliver on that, we're not going to be successful, neither OpenAI or Europe. I think the second thing is going to be, if there are shocks in particular industries, how well were those managed? I'll be looking at metrics about how long unemployment spells were, whether folks were retrained, whether job growth in some sectors outweighed job losses in other affected sectors. These are the kinds of things I'll be looking at to determine whether Europe or anywhere else was successful in managing the transition.
Okay. Great.
Cool.
Thank you, Ronnie.
Thank
It was
you.
great to have you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a bumper that abruptly stopped. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pieter Haak. I'm a senior technology reporter at Politico, and together with my panelists, who are coming on stage already, nice, we will further unpack how AI will influence the world of work, of course, based on the interesting insights that we already had in the previous interview. I'm joined on stage, this guy you already know, everyone. Further to the left, we have Angelica Salvi Del Pero, who is a senior employment advisor at the OECD. Stefan Olsen, Deputy Director General at the DG Employment, the employment part of the European Commission. And then finally, we have Sergei Lagodinsky, a European Parliament lawmaker from the Greens from Germany. Angelica, maybe if I can address you by your first name. And maybe we want to start with you. We already heard some insights from OpenAI about the impact of AI on the labor market and also the exposure of certain jobs to AI. But the OECD also has done a lot of research on that particular field. Can you relate with what Ronnie said earlier, or is there any this connection with what the OECD has found out about this topic?
Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. So no, I think I relate very much to what Ronnie was saying. Our findings are very similar. We have done a couple of surveys of workers and employers to understand the impact that AI is having on them and their workplaces. We find that at the firm level, for the majority of firms, and we're looking at even 80% when we look at small firms, they see no change in staff levels, in the total level of employment after AI adoption. And that's also confirmed when we look at employment rates over time. They're at historical highs. But as Ronnie was also hinting at or saying, there are a few things that we need to understand and not forget when we talk about the impact of AI. One is that stable employment levels don't mean that everyone will keep their job. There can be churn even if employment level goes up, right? So because some jobs will be automated, those people might lose their jobs, but they can find other jobs. And so they need to transition to different tasks.
If you say some jobs can be automated, we heard the percentage of 14%. Is that a number that...
We have a number that's slightly higher, but slightly different. So in the next 10 years, 27% are higher risk
27%,
yes.
Okay. So that's where we are, 14 to 27%. I also heard the interesting difference maybe between jobs and quality jobs. And I then want to turn to Stefan, because your commissioner, the Executive Vice President, Roxana Minzatu, she's not only in charge of jobs, she's actually in charge of quality jobs. And I think there is a lot of concern among people that maybe in the future they indeed will still have have some kind of job, but maybe it's just ticking a box or supervising whatever a bot has cooked up, and that's maybe not a quality job. Can you share a bit your insights or what the Commission's thinking is about having a job or having a quality job?
That's a big one, no?
We like to start big.
So the question, would the Commission being able to see into the future? I mean, I think Ronnie is better at the future, but so thanks a lot, by the way, for all the work you're doing. I think the quality jobs debate comes really from the starting point is that the European economy really thrives on quality jobs, productive jobs. That's a strength we have. You mentioned the talent, for example, there. And so I think that's the whole thinking, that in terms of building education, both academic and vocational education, sound social systems, we are developing a workforce that can do high productivity jobs. Then AI comes into that. Very difficult, no, to judge, but I think our first thinking, in line with many multinationals and the OECD, is that we would rather see that AI could increase the quality rather than decrease it. And many low-quality jobs today some of those might disappear, not all of them, of course, and with the right skilling, we could move them to higher quality jobs. I think that's our aim. Will it turn out like that? I wouldn't be that certain to say today, but that's what we're trying to do.
The dream is that AI will take away the low-quality job, will automate those, and will increase the quality of the high-quality jobs. Then is that then the thinking?
I think in very simple terms, okay. I think that would be one of the aims in terms of upskilling people to be able to take on that type of economic development. Yeah.
Okay. Sergei, as a Greens lawmaker, you're more at the center left of Parliament, more concerned a bit about the labor movement and social affairs and the rights of workers. Do you think that what you hear here is that going into the right direction also on the exposure of jobs and the Commission's response to that?
I think, first of all, thank you for the study and thanks for focusing on Europe, because the previous study was indeed focused on the United States. It's very difficult to compare. We have totally different scene here. I'm a big fan of economists, not being myself being more a lawyer and a policymaker. But the one thing about economists is it's always about numbers and it's sometimes about jobs, but it's not always about individual people. And yes, the math might be right, but how many people sitting here in this room are concerned that in 2, 3, or 5 years, someone else or something else will be doing their job? And this is the actual problem and the actual factor, what we're talking about. And that's why when we're discussing this, I think we should be discussing this on two levels. Number one is a protection-based level. And this is something we addressed in the AI Act, for example. Do we want emotion recognition of employees on their job? By the way, also of students. We decided, as those who have interests of our voters and constituencies in mind, this is not the type of observation and surveillance we want to have. We do not want, or we want to look more exactly into the process of selecting people during the process of application jobs. And then there is, of course, an initiative by the Commission to talk about algorithmic management of jobs and to add certain issues to that. But I wanted to talk about the second issue, and this is a covenant-based approach. We have two contracts here that are imploding. Number one is the social contract of our societies. And this social contract is of European societies. There we have to start talking about redistribution and about new ways of talking about redistribution. Yeah. I'm coming from the Soviet Union. I'm the last one who would want communist or socialist approaches. But here we are talking about this. And the second one, and I will end there, is the transatlantic covenant. Yeah. Because it is a problem that our jobs and that the innovation wave here is driven by American companies, and we're having a lot of pressure by the American administration not to regulate and not to address
We'll
those
definitely get to that later. I think I want to briefly go to the Commission and then to the economist who can reply to the lawyer. Brussels is always a bit economists versus lawyers. But first, the Commission. I hear a plea for more protection. The AI Act already addressed the risks that these AI systems are posing to certain peoples or certain use cases, but the employment aspect wasn't that hard or big in the AI Act. Yet we have the Quality Jobs Act coming. Do you expect any definitive actions to be taken there with regards to AI and the labor market in that legislative initiative?
You've been around so long, so you know the reply already. We are. I think to start, the AI Act 24. I mean, we were the first in the world. That was very important to show leadership. Of course, it's a moving target, so it's also brave, I think, to do it. Now, the Quality Jobs roadmap that we did leads into a process of consultation this year. We should shortly launch the second stage consultation of our social partners, seeing what they do. I mean, we see a number of options to try to see what are there gaps still, and is there something we can do to build more trust, to make sure that also in the terms of take-up, also in the terms of action of social partners, human oversight, but we're still on the fence of seeing where we will go there.
But it will definitely be part of the law, and there will be some.
Yeah, as we lawyers tend to be rather boring, so the consultation covers this. It has to do legally. So there are 4 items. I won't, but algorithmic management is one clear, distinct area that can turn into further regulation at the end. But I can't say today.
Okay. But we keep in mind that algorithmic management is part of the agenda. Maybe then going to the economist. Do you hear what they're saying about, okay, this is a big study and big numbers, etc., but what about the protection for individual cases, individual people? Is that something where you already see some instruments or some data to address that call or that need?
Yeah, no, I definitely do. And I think Sergey was being very polite to economists. My wife's a lawyer, so I'm also very polite to lawyers. But I think he put it well, which is that economics, we have quantitative data often. We have theory also, but it can be abstracted from, real life. And that is a weakness of social science like economics. I think as a human, when someone comes and asks me about the job market, so I have a lot of students that I taught as a professor. When they ask me about this, I start not with the evidence from my AI jobs framework that says, well, actually, you only have to worry if you're in this, that doesn't work, right? You have to empathize first and say, look, if you're having trouble at your job or finding a job, as some early career people are right now, and there's data to support that, first, how do you help this particular person in front of you? Sometimes you'll be able to direct them to an industry that is growing or a set of skills they can acquire. But in other cases, and we're going to need strong support from the government to help people in those transitions. So very much in agreement. I mean, much of those social welfare programs are designed with economics in mind, right? How do we allocate scarce resources? Who do we target it to? What kinds of programs we provide? So I think it makes a lot of sense. In fact, at OpenAI, it may surprise people, there's a ton of interest in these kind of programs exactly in terms of how do we do it best. The people who are building the technology inside OpenAI are the most interested in how to make sure that it benefits a broad swath of humanity. So for them, the kinds of the programs that Sergey is talking about, and actually innovative new ones that haven't even been instituted, are really exciting and important. And I think if we can make those programs economically grounded so that we help the right people at the right time, it's important. You want to make sure that, for example, we're helping people who are going to make a transition into a new industry, not necessarily places where there's actually no AI exposure. So you can't do it on autopilot. And I think that's where good data actually matters. And keeping sort of labor market monitoring of where AI's impact really is so important to executing the programs he's talking about well. So I see it as conducive.
I want to talk a bit about how AI is evolving, because at the end of 2023, we all had ChatGPT and we started playing with these chatbots, of course, but now we see the rise of AI agents who are able to tackle much more tasks and tasks autonomously. You don't longer have to copy-paste things out of the chatbot to your own workspace environment, to say. And then I want to wonder a bit like how sure or how definitive can we be about things like exposure if we see this kinds of new technology popping up every week maybe, or every day or every hour? So Angelica, I want to hear from you, like if you look at how also a job is defined, a job is of course, different tasks after one another. How is that influencing the exposure definition and the exposure numbers maybe?
Yeah, so you definitely need to update and monitor the definitions that you're giving, both in terms of the capabilities of AI, and then at the other end, what is the job content, because that will also change as AI is adopted. So that is a major component of the work that everyone here needs to do when they look at this measure of exposure. At the moment, you can only work with the data that you know now. We try to be forward-looking in terms of what we think that AI can do in the next 5 to 10 years, but there are limitations. So it's an indication of where we think things are going. I would say the most important thing is to understand that also in the past, we've seen other waves of automation by machines and then by digital computers. The fact that some tasks are automated, it doesn't mean that no jobs exist anymore. They mean that, as you were saying before, that people might need to move to a different job or do different things in their own job. So that's, And
if we then speak about, you mentioned the number of 27%, is that then the exposure of tasks or the exposure of jobs? Or can you see a world where maybe the number is higher if you look at certain tasks? Or
no, I would say that is the jobs, but in terms of what can be automated, it's not exposures, it's a different number.
Okay. So I remember you worked on you're one of the key lawmakers on the AI Act, and I know that you quizzed the Commission about the question is, are agents part of are these covered by the AI Act? How do you see these rise of AI agents, but then through the perspective of the labor market? And do you think that the Commission is well equipped enough to take these into consideration in their policy response?
Well, I think there was a little correspondence between me and Madame Verkunen on this issue. I think generally this is a symptom. This is a symptom that let's put it this way, can we keep pace with innovation without regulation? And can we see that the Commission is flexible enough to react? In this particular case, the Commission said that they consider AI Act to cover agentic AI. I have my doubts. This is a lawyer's thing on definitions. The main point is that we need to make sure that there are no loopholes. And in this particular issue and on this particular debate, I think that AI Act will not address the issue of job substitution and this kind of expansive way of new inventions. And the same with robotics. We will be having issues with robots and agentic AI replacing more and more human beings. I doubt that the 14% is the number that will be the number that we will be seeing.
Maybe 27? Is that a better bet?
We can settle on that. But the issue is that we are in front of or before a huge transformation, and this transformation will also have democracy implications. We're seeing this in the United States with the backlash on data centers. I'm very concerned that without addressing this in a regulative way, and also pressuring us not to address this in a regulative way, we are feeding the monster of populism and conspiracy theories, which will be projecting on AI, on big tech, all the sins and the problems of this transformation. And from that perspective, I can only repeat the call, if I may. I mean, this is my favorite and most important topic to me. I think that the big tech, the American big tech, to which I count you have to make it clear to your government that this government should, first of all, address this on the federal level, the risks that you were talking about yourselves, but also stop pressuring and blackmailing us not to do so.
Ronnie, because that's a clear. I'll let you respond to this. Well, let's get to it. Like, are you telling Mr. Trump not to blackmail Europe?
No, my job as the chief economist is to do research. But this is important. I think at the end of the day, everyone plays a different role in this. So I'm not involved in that part of the government policy. But what I can do is try to put together data that says what's happening in the job market. This point on agentic AI, I think, is really important, which is the agentic tools are moving very fast. And so when you do a report like we did, we'll have to keep updating it as agentic exposures happen in the job market. Otherwise, it will be outdated, and that number will be higher. I do think it's a little hard to predict the future. So I think one thing we've done well, I think, so far is we haven't been hyperbolic in either direction when it comes to the job market. There's a lot of predictions online and on social media. Unemployment rate will be 25% by the end of this year. It hasn't happened, right? And I think understanding the job market, giving policymakers realistic perceptions of it is really important. That's the part I'll do.
Okay, great. I wanted to get back to what you were actually saying about what the Commission should do. You said, like, we're in front of a great transformation. I also read that as a call to the Commission, like, speed up this a bit, like, hurry up with the Quality Jobs Act and with also the human oversight. And I want to get back, you mentioned earlier, like, human oversight will be addressed in the Quality Jobs Act, but maybe with AI agents already in the market, like, maybe that boat already sailed.
Yeah, I wouldn't, you know, as a lawyer in DG Employment, I also have my limits.
Stop the excuse of being a lawyer. Come on, real talk here.
No, but I think what we're looking at really is more the issue. Can we now with the social partners, and I think this is a big strength as opposed to other parts of the world, that we do have trade unions and employers in dialogue about these things. So we are now asking them, are they ready to do something, or how do they see this? And at the same time, we're trying to support social dialogue and in this transformation and having a dialogue in each company. As you said, overall, the SMEs, that's a bigger challenge because family companies, difficult to reach out. But I think the combination, and I'm not replying directly to your question, but I think that the combination of tools that we have a proposal for a new budget that will focus on structural reform, where member states will have a possibility to invest in skills and competitiveness. The social dialogue, as I said, a stronger dialogue between the institutions. Angelica and I meet in the G7 and the G20. I mean, I think this dialogue, based on the type of input we have today, that's what we're really trying to get, so that everybody has the same information and going in the same way. And Europe will have, I think, an advantage there in a more consensual, more kind of bottom-up way of discussion. So that's how I hope that we will be able to deal with issues. You mentioned briefly, Ronnie, the issue about the entry-level jobs, no? And if I take that as an example, if we get a clear understanding that is a real issue, then I think we will, with the tools we have, with the funding, the different skills tools, the dialogues we have, to address that as a European Union, like we did when we had, after the 2008 crisis, we had 50% youth unemployment in Spain, we did the youth guarantee. So I think there we have a strength, but we will need to build on that type of cooperation instead of conflict. And so that's our strength, which I hope we will be able to build on. Yeah. On the AI agents, as you heard from my avoiding the reply, I'm simply not good enough on that, so I'll avoid that issue.
But I want to go a bit further on the good topic of entry-level jobs. Thanks for suggesting that. Because we see, it's often said, like, people who are very skilled with these tools, they have an advantage. Then again, the people who are coming into the labor market, they often are very native with playing with these tools, and yet hiring is very slow at the moment in Europe. A lot of people are struggling to get into their first job. So I want to hear a bit from, I don't know who wants to take the question. Like, that's a bit of how to say that, there is a bit of a tension there. We have people native with these tools, and yet again, these people struggle to get into the labor market. Maybe running from your side. Well, what is your thought on that?
The best research on AI's impact on the job market that actually shows some of these negative effects is with the early career group. And so there's a really great paper from the lab at Stanford called Canaries in the Coal Mine. And while there's a lot of speculation about AI and jobs, this is a really carefully done study. And what they try to do is isolate the effect of AI on early career jobs. And there's a lot of other things going on during this period, which they try to control for. During COVID, there was a lot of hiring, and then firms pulled back. The interest rate environment changed. There were other macroeconomic changes as well. They try to control for that, and they find some decreased hiring among early career in that data. In the US, the unemployment rate for early career individuals has come down since November, December, but it's still higher than the general population, which I think is, of course, the same here. So that's the area we really have to focus on. I think if I think about some of Sergey's suggestions and targeting, that's really where you want to focus, because for an early career person looking for their first job, if they don't get that job and they're out of the job market for a long time, it's going to be harder for them to build skills later on. Other research shows that if you don't enter the job market at the right time or in a good year, that'll affect your earnings even near the end of your career. So I think it's something to pay attention to. Definitely, the data, there'll be more studies. There'll be some in Europe, I think, that have already been done on this. But that's the place in the labor market I would focus on. I also think at the same time, all of my research shows these are the people who are using the tools the most, which is also interesting. Both those things can be true.
Wouldn't you argue then that these people who are most, again, native with the tools are actually, that they would have it easier to get to a job, because all the companies out there are really screaming for people who are skilled with these tools?
It depends on the industry and what they're hiring for, but it can be true that in some industries, maybe they're using AI and hiring less. In other industries, they have young people who are using AI and getting a lot done. It could also be a smaller number of young people getting more done with AI. So these things aren't mutually exclusive. I do think, though, in every study I've seen, young people are leading the way in terms of understanding how to use AI, and firms are benefiting from that. Still have to worry about the early career job market.
So we look at it, this is an important question. We also see that unemployment rates for young college graduates that are entering the labor market have been going up more than for the rest of the population. We see a gap that's now 0.5 percentage points. But in looking at more than US in terms of data sources for whether AI is driving this or not, our sense is that it's not really that, because these are industries that are more exposed to macro trends. So there's basically, we shouldn't confuse the fact that someone is losing their job at the same time or just after AI adoption and make that the cause. It can be something else that's driving that job loss or that automation. So that's our sense is that this trend in growing unemployment rates for young people are predating adoption of AI, especially outside the US. So it might not be, AI itself might not be the cause. It might be because they are in industries that are suffering at the same time.
And can we learn some lessons out of that for the bigger issue of AI reskilling and upskilling? Because it's often said people will need to accommodate themselves or adapt to these tools. And is that something where Brussels can play a role? I mean, Brussels hasn't got a lot of competencies in the skills and employment field. They really have to nudge the member states a bit or companies a bit. What do you make of that? What's the Brussels role in reskilling and upskilling people for the AI era?
Well, thanks. We started, the Ursula von der Leyen II Commission started with the whole competitiveness agenda. And within the first 100 days, we did the Union of Skills, which was a new approach, which was based on what we were doing before, but accentuated. And I think there, what I'm doing a lot personally, and what we really focus on, is to build this partnership between business. We have the Pact for Skills with 1,000 big companies. I don't think OpenAI is in yet. Pledging millions of jobs, and then we work with vocational education and training. We work with member states that sometimes are a little bit conservative when it comes to education, because I read one article this morning. For the data centers, there will be need for a lot of electricians, or whatever. You would need to redirect a lot faster now. When many of a lot of young people here, but there used to be this picture: you become a doctor, an economist, or a lawyer, and it's going to be fine. That's not going to work in that way anymore. So we need this agility, this not falling back on a conservative approach, and getting business and institutions and funding together. And I think we're doing that quite well, as you said, within our limited competencies. But that's really where I think we are, a kind of a catalyst, seed money, working and being very open to working with business, because the business, as we see from this report and from are the ones who really know what's going on first. No?
But do you think that because if we speak about, we see a lot of shortages. There are cybersecurity expert shortages. There, you said it, the data centers need a lot of people. Do you think that things like the Union of Skills and the Pact of Skills are enough to really create a pivotal momentum where we will make sure that people go into these jobs that are really wanted instead of other jobs? Isn't there a need for more urgency?
I mean, you're asking a European official whether we should get more power, no?
Well, so, if you want to respond to that.
No. I think it's catching on. It's slow, but we see already a lot. We are doing these skills academies on cybersecurity, on energy, where we're developing business institutions, member states, commission, blueprints for education that anybody can use. I mean, so I think that when the need comes, but it's going to be the member states in the end who have to take it up, to take this step, to really use it and invest. But yeah. So after 30 years here, the idea that there can be an EU solution to this that dictates that, I don't think will work. But I think we're getting there through a lot of dialogue. We had this European Year of Skills a few years ago that really, we had thousands of events. And I think we're getting this understanding that you can't just sit back and do the good old education like you used to. Yeah. I mean, I'd be interesting, I don't want to take over your role here before, preferably. But in the US, I haven't really understood, is education developing more, is it more dynamic in the US? Or?
Good question. I'll speak from just my personal experience a little bit, having worked with a lot of higher education institutions. The elementary and secondary school system in the US is more decentralized in many ways than in Europe, from my understanding. So we have like independent school districts that are often making decisions at the local level. I might get the number wrong, but it's like 12,000, some number like that of units. So at the school district level, they're gonna make decisions about how to use AI in the classroom, when to use AI. And from my own limited experience, I'm seeing lots of variation. Some schools are embracing AI and use that as almost a thing to attract parents and students. Others are saying they want to move away from that and focus more on the classics, humanity, reading books, things like that, separate from AI. Universities are probably sort of more embracing universally of AI, but they're finding in different ways to do it. I think one is, it depends on the subject you study. There's a wide variation between, let's say, what they're doing in the STEM fields versus the humanities, and it depends on the university. I think awareness among students is very high. So if you talk to any college senior graduating, they will tell you, I want to find a way to make an AI-proof career. And to your point, or your point about a doctor, an economist, those pathways, there's no easy answer to that. So I feel like at the university level, a lot of awareness. Every university has an AI initiative. Yeah. But much like things you're talking about, the implementation is challenging and it's difficult to show results quickly.
Yeah. Okay, before this turns into a US school panel, I want to go to, it was already said, like this is also a job for the member states to really be agile. And Sergei, I don't want to see you as a representative of the German government, which you're definitely not. But then again, Volkswagen is reportedly maybe laying off 100,000 people that can maybe go into new jobs and then will have to be reskilled for the AI era. Do you see enough urgency and agility in member states to really, for example, tap these people that are looking for a new job opportunity and to reskill them and upskill them to the AI era?
I think in theory, yes. We have seen, though, and probably the Green former economy minister who's speaking now in a couple of hours here in Brussels, Robert Habeck is here, might speak better on this. But we've seen this, the transition, the transformation, the green transformation, getting out of coal in Germany. Well, it was and is a very painful process. Why? Because these numbers, that new jobs will be created in new economy. They might be, in theory, they add up, but these are different people. Yes. There is a mismatch between those who are losing jobs, and a lot of them, and those who are needed. These are different people. And this is the social factor that is hugely underestimated. You can try to offer retraining, but what are you going to retrain a person of 60 years old, who is about to retire but was kicked out of his coal mining industry, and the same here, of industry from Volkswagen or somewhere else. So that's why I mentioned the redistribution issue, and that's why we will need to start talking, and I know OpenAI was quite vocal on the issue of basic income or some socially innovative issues. But for that, we will need to acquire money. We will need to get our own resources. We will need to tax companies, also digital companies. And
also OpenAI?
Also OpenAI. OpenAI said they are ready to be taxed. Their president, American president, said just yesterday that anyone who would dare to talk about digital tax will face 100% tariffs. So maybe you should be lobbying with him. Sorry that I'm pushing this, but that's the problem. We can find solutions, but these solutions are being attacked and prevented on the political level in Washington.
Yeah. And now you raised it. Indeed, we've seen new threats from President Trump against Europe, against digital services taxes, despite the trade deal that was being put in place or that is almost finished. What do you make of those threats?
I mean, we said this from the very beginning. If there will be a rollback on the Turnberry deal, and Turnberry deal is a deal on both sides, then the deal is off. That's how at least we entrusted the Commission and urged the Commission to call it off. This was the precondition of the Parliament when we, and myself included, agreed to the Turnberry deal. Yeah. So if additional pressure, additional changes will be coming from one side on behalf of the President, then the Turnberry deal is off.
Yeah, the Commission is this week in Washington to speak with US counterparts about this digital dialogue. What do you think that the threats mean for?
I expect them to say precisely that. Yeah. Because this is the mandate that the Parliament gave to the Commission, and the Commission should take it seriously.
Okay. Sorry for that little... good news line are always appreciated by my colleagues who are covered this panel. Before we go to the last question, I want to briefly look at the poll, if we can quickly recall that. So the question was, which part of the AI labor market transition will need the most focus in Europe? And the winner at the moment, we still have some time to respond, building workers' AI literacy and practical skills as jobs evolve. Does that sound
yes.
Logical? Yes?
It does to me.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about investing in training and skills for AI, yet only a minority of programs for training are focused really on AI. And among those, a small part is focused on AI skills for the general populations. Many of these programs that exist on AI, there are already few, are focused on training AI specialists. But AI specialists are a very small portion of the whole workforce. So we should really focus on targeting the content better to the general population, and then target the format also in a way that helps increase participation for adults. So we're talking a lot about education, but the mindset needs to change. Training needs to happen all along the working life, because that's the only way. Otherwise, as you say, you find yourself when you're late in your career, and you're not going to retrain and become completely different specialists at that age. So you need training really all along, and for that you need trainers more flexible, shorter, modular, and well certified.
Okay. I want to go a bit further into the future, to the idea of artificial general intelligence. You're all familiar to that idea. That's the idea that at a certain point AI will be so capable that it can outmatch humans in almost every field. That's something that companies in the Valley and also OpenAI are actively chasing. Then, of course, what will be the role of humans in that scenario? And of course, what will the role of humans be in the labor market then? So yeah, maybe OpenAI, what's your thinking on, or what's OpenAI's thinking on that?
We spent a lot of time at OpenAI talking about alignment, the idea that sort of human values have to be aligned with the trajectory of the technology. To reach AGI and have it go well, these transitions, it has to be done with sort of humans in the first priority, right? Not an afterthought. When I think about the job market, I think of two things. One is, I think, there's never been a technological transformation where we haven't created new work, right? And as optimistic as I am that people can find new opportunities for leisure, I think there's going to be a demand for new work and things we can't even imagine today. if you look at the jobs...
But even if you have a system that is better in every field than us?
Think about how much scarcity there'll be for other kinds of services. So for example, like in healthcare and education, even with super powerful AI, super capable AI, you're still going to want a human teaching your kindergartner or someone to hold your hand during chemotherapy. And I would argue that as societies get more richer, empirically, they spend more money on education and healthcare, which are primarily how we take care of each other. Humans take care of each other. So I'm actually very confident there'll be a lot for humans to do. The part that I'm more worried about is how quickly that transition happens and if we can do the kinds of things that Sergey and others have talked about to make sure that it goes well. But I believe humans will have a lot to do.
But is there then enough urgency in Brussels? Because, for example, we're also discussing, you mentioned it already, the EU budget, which reaches until 2034. And in those discussions, I've never heard anyone mentioning AI or even an artificial general intelligence. Are we wrong on that end? Are we really underestimating the impact of something like AGI? Sergey, I see you nodding.
I think we generally underestimate. I mean, we didn't even mention the Mythos and ChatGPT 5, what is super? Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is a huge security challenge, but this is also, it means that the US administration can just switch off the models on which many jobs will be built. So we will be in the hand of US government in terms of people losing jobs because we will not have access to frontier models. Yeah. So the only answer is we need ourselves to develop capabilities that will be compatible. Yeah. And this we can only do with enough equity and enough public money.
And about the EU budget, the next EU budget, should we really foresee some money in there maybe to cope with the mass job displacement that can be
If we don't, that means we're stupid.
Okay, that's very clear. Message mission maybe also to the Commission to put some money aside?
Yeah, I think the idea with this new budget, it is really to have the flexibility because I think it comes also from a frustration also from our president, from the top, and from the other institutions that, you know, we need to finance this, and then we sit officials and we say, no, but it's programmed already, so you can't change your mind now. We programmed it for 7 years. So this new budget has much less silos and much more possibilities. So there, I think the fact that AI is not mentioned is not an issue. There's a lot of possibilities for skills, or then, as you know, we're in Brussels, we would like as big budgets as possible. But as the construction, that will be able to respond to new challenges, and AI is definitely one of them.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a good moment to wrap it up there. I want to thank you all for your insights. I remember there is still some issue about taxation to be cleared up between Sergey, and there will be maybe also some lawyer versus economist battle at the bar. Before we go there, we'll hand it over to my colleague, Carrie, who will wrap it all up. But thanks for the panelists. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today, both to those here in the room and those watching on the live stream, and to our great speakers. AI and the impact of AI is core part of, like I said, our coverage, our tech coverage at Politico. This is a conversation I know we're going to be continuing to explore in the weeks and months ahead. Thank you as well to our partners at OpenAI for making this possible. And just at Politico, we're eager to connect with you in person about our coverage and our journalism. Stay tuned for a lineup of fall events, live events this fall, starting with our first ever Brussels Playbook live event on September 22nd. And in the meantime, our Brussels Playbook podcast is about to record its 100th episode this week. We hope you tune in, you subscribe, you rate us, as Zoya would say. Thank you so much again, and have a great day.